Welcome to Path of Exile 2. It is not Path of Exile 1, and many players are learning that today. Finally, and they are shocked about it. I am glad it's not Path of Exile 1. This is not what we should have expected from everything Grinding Gear Games has said. This is an evolution of action role-playing games, the next generation ARPG. And just because people are discovering this and sending tons of feedback Grinding Gear Games' way, I really hope they stand their ground and do not change the game to be easier. We are going to dive into the story of Path of Exile 2's launch, server issues, connection issues. We're going to talk about first impressions from the community, from myself, from my dad, maybe from my wife, and the future of Path of Exile 2 going forward in this news roundup video. Talkative here with another Path of Exile 2 video, the first Path of Exile 2 video post-launch. If you like this style of content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Both are absolutely free and the best way to support it. Thank you. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with the launch day. Launch actually went well, even though it was delayed. Now, I say it went well for the most part. Because after a series of delays in getting these servers live because there were issues that they were catching as they expanded the number of concurrent players that they could host, they restarted the realms multiple times, they wiped databases, and when the servers went live, they were good for the players who could actually play them. Unfortunately, the website was down for most of the day, and this is bad for one key reason. No pun intended there. People who needed to redeem their keys to play on Steam needed to do so on the Path of Exile website. While the servers for Path of Exile 2 were up, the website was down for a very long time last night. And many people who were supposed to play via Steam and have no issues could not press the play button and they could not log in to Path of Exile 2 because they couldn't redeem their Steam keys. So they were unable to play Path of Exile 2, while people who were on console, people who were playing on the standalone were all good to go. That was very unfortunate, but besides that, once you got into the game, there were like no server issues. I had 2 lag spikes. They both lasted about a second and a half, and I had 0 disconnects. That isn't saying that people aren't disconnecting and encountering bugs. I just haven't encountered any, and I have now played for 14 hours ever since the game launched yesterday. And they have all been great. We'll get in my first impressions in a little bit because I do have some critiques. And of course, I got to talk about all the community critiques as well. But first, we have to acknowledge this fact. This is the only public player count numbers that we actually have for Path of Exile 2 from Steam. And remember, Steam had a ton of issues yesterday getting people into the game itself. We can see that yesterday we peaked at around 459,000 players, which is insane. Dipped a little bit as players got tired out. And then today we peaked at 539,149 players on Steam alone. Remember, there's also the standalone client, which I and many other people use. There's also Xbox Series X and PS5. We probably had close to 1 million players, if not 1 million players, playing Path of Exile 2. We know from one of the Path of Exile 2 tweets from the day before that they had 1 million early access redemptions, and those numbers were climbing. So I would not be surprised at all if we actually hit 1 million players. Grinding Gear Games will probably release that information when they can. Right now, they're dealing with things such as nerfing some very high-powered skills, starting with Supercharged Slam, which was absolutely busted, I guess. So yeah, the launch for the most part went phenomenally, especially since they had so many players trying to access the early access servers. They were not prepared for this tremendous surge of players coming to play Path of Exile 2. Like I said, probably around 1 million, at least 500,000 plus on Steam, which is crazy. So given that, now that people have played Path of Exile 2, I want to start by talking about some facts about the game. Then we will get into opinion. Fact: IGN gave Path of Exile 2 early access an 8 out of 10. Okay, for real now. Let's talk about the facts, then get into opinion. Grinding Gear Games went hard. This game is unapologetically gritty, it's dark, and it is difficult. Let's talk about the gritty nature of it. The world of Rayclast is truly an unforgiving place in this sequel to Path of Exile 1. While we had places like the Lunaris Temple Level 2 in Path of Exile 1, there are numerous locales in Path of Exile 2 that exhibit this dark atmosphere only seen in select areas in its predecessor. Off the top of my head, I can think of at least 3 areas that truly exhibit this dark atmosphere. First up is the Executioner boss fight in Act 1. He cuts off someone's head, it falls into a huge pile of other heads. There are blood-curdling screams as you battle him and as this happens, and it is chilling, and I love it. Then in Act 2, there is the Ardua Caravan, which is literally being pulled by dozens of slaves. What other gaming company would put this in their ARPG? They are pulling a giant caravan of people that you are helping, that you are allied with. All these slaves. This is crazy stuff. I can't believe this is in a AAA modern day game. And then I don't want to go too heavy into spoilers, but somewhere in Act 2, you literally burn someone alive. You burn them. You do it. You burn them alive. You see them burn alive. Their body turns to ash. Their charred bones are left behind. And again, it just shocked me. There are more of these moments that I could go into, but there is no doubt that Grinding Gear Games went full on grit with Path of Exile 2. Second up, it is difficult. I don't think anyone can argue this point. I have encountered so many difficult pack fights, rares, monsters, and the like. All the combat is hard, and I will stay away from opinion right now and just state that it is hard. And I think that this is an agreed upon fact, and this is intentional from Grinding Gear Games. It's hard in the fact that all these different monster packs are unique. Each fight, even the rare monster fights, are unique. When you see a certain modifier on a certain monster, it truly does change the way that you interact with them. Unlike in Path of Exile 1, where it was more an annoyance, now it really does change the way that you play. And it is difficult. I will stay away from opinion for now. And third, it's just downright Path of Exile. Doubled down. Okay, we have our gem system, which is beautifully PoE. We have the Path of Exile skill tree in PoE2, which is enormous. When I opened it for the first time, I said quite a few things that probably could be turned into that's what she said jokes. I was stunned. I didn't think it would be as large as it was, just seeing snippets of it from all the press releases and people playing the game itself. When I went to play in LA, it was not that huge. I never really zoomed out in it. But when I finally sat down and pressed P for the first time, I was floored. And then there's the item system, right, which is perfectly Path of Exile. You're constantly picking up new gear. You're constantly equipping new things. And I think it even better exhibits that fantasy than PoE1 because you're not limited by the gems that you can put into the gear like in Path of Exile 1. You can just pick up new items, craft on them, and equip them immediately. So you're constantly cycling through new and better gear, which is great. Now let's get into the opinion section of the video, the reception of many different communities. We'll close out with my initial impressions of the game itself. Let us begin with brand new players. From what I've seen and who I've talked to, brand new players to the Path of Exile franchise love the game. They love its difficulty. They love the grittiness. They think that the skill system is easier to understand than they were explained the Path of Exile 1 system was. They understand that they're moving from area to area, fighting bosses, burning down packs, and progressing through this campaign. Many of the new players I've talked to have not yet reached the end game. I haven't even reached the end game, but what they are playing so far, they are enjoying. And I think they are embracing Path of Exile 2 for what it is, a brand new game. Then we have Path of Exile 1 players who cannot accept that this is not PoE1. I think this is a majority of the complaints across the forums right now, across Reddit. It's a lot of Path of Exile 1 players who bought into Path of Exile 2 being just Path of Exile 1 with a new skin on top. Somehow, despite all of the marketing that Grinding Gear Games has been doing these past few years. And it's not that at all. It is a slower paced game. It is more methodical, more engaging, especially in the campaign. And it seems as though many Path of Exile players who have been playing the game for a decade plus believe they should hop into Path of Exile 2 and be able to clear Path of Exile 2 as fast as they currently clear Path of Exile 1 after having played it for those 10 years, doing the campaign hundreds, if not thousands of times. That is 100% not going to happen, and people need to set their expectations right for Path of Exile 2. Meaning they need to understand it is not Path of Exile 1 and it is a completely different product. Most definitely, some people have valid critiques. Let's talk about a few of them right now that I do agree with and think are valid. One is zone resetting completely once you open up a zone again. Okay, I understand the monsters resetting, but if you leave a zone and come back to it, its layout completely resets. It has brand new monsters. The fog of war is completely back. I think that it should hold the zone for a little bit longer. So in case you go back to town, maybe you get a side quest for that zone, you can come back, still have the same layout, still know where places are, and have those monsters back in instead of it being a completely new area. This does halt progress a bit because these zones are difficult to clear. These monsters are hard to fight. So I think that would be a big improvement. I also think that some scaling seems to be off. Okay, I'm going to use the example of the Act 2 almost final area. It's before the final act boss. I won't do too many spoilers, but it's essentially a pretty linear area that seems way overtuned compared to the rest of Act 2. I basically glazed through Act 2 with ease, not many issues. Some of the bosses were a little difficult. There were some hard areas, but this zone I spent the most time in, I died the most in, and when I reached the act boss, I downed the act boss after 3 tries. That's it. This zone, though, kicked my arse over and over and over again. I think Grinding Gear Games needs to look at the tuning of some of these areas and make sure it is balanced out, especially the non-optional areas. Having a sudden spike in difficulty like this is absolutely crazy, unless this is intentional. I am just getting into Act 3. I haven't actually started Act 3. But given how much easier the Act 2 boss was than the area leading up to them, I think this is unintentional and there needs to be some balance done there. Here's some feedback I don't agree with. Don't tune down the Act 1 boss. Don't tune down the Act 2 end boss. Don't already start nerfing monsters and the like that are supposed to be super hard. I would only look at these edge cases or these odd scenarios where something is way harder than everything else in the game suddenly, and it starts absolutely slaughtering people. I talk about the almost final Act 2 area because I have seen this opinion everywhere. I think the balance is a little bit whack there, and there is something Grinding Gear Games can do to address it. When we're talking about the final Act 1 boss, I think that's supposed to be very hard. I don't think it needs to be nerfed. I think people need to learn how to fight the boss. It is an excellent fight. Oh, the music, the crescendos, the dialogue, the attacks. It's great. And people should spend some time there learning how to play Path of Exile 2 and really testing their character build. Also, please do not make more loot drop. Loot drops are in a good place. I love the tempo at which we are obtaining loot, currency. Maybe some people are having unlucky streaks, but are those people also clearing all the mobs? Are they rushing past all the mobs? Are they treating this game like Path of Exile 1? Or are they treating it as a new experience? Again, I'm treating it as a new experience. I am going through all the areas. I am listening to the dialogue. I'm breathing it all in. I'm about 14 hours in, and I just got to Act 3 as a veteran Path of Exile 1 player. You just got to treat it as a new game, everyone. Okay, I have not done it yet. We're going to do it right now, live. I am opening the Path of Exile subreddit right now. Okay, yep, okay. You don't need a loot filter if you never find any loot. People are angry. PoE2, it's actually ruthless. Yep, oh, they're very mad. Nobody's going to complain about endgame stuff if they can't get to endgame. People are getting locked hard and they are pissed. I love that the game has actual challenge. Please don't let Reddit opinion ruin it. Oh my goodness gracious. There's some combativeness here. This one actually has 3,500 upvotes. This is very good. This is only 620. This one's at 5,300 though. So the loot, people are pissed about the loot. I just said, don't change the loot. Please, grinding gear games, don't. I like this volume of loot. When you tried to open your inventory but clicked U instead, this little maneuver is going to cost us 51 years. Okay, the map opening is not that slow, and the map is actually pretty awesome in Path of Exile too. Maybe it is a little slow because it has a lot of stuff happening inside of it. And then we have a lot of people complaining about mobs surrounding them, which everyone, that is something else that I totally disagree with. I don't think that we need phasing on dodge roll. If you are getting surrounded by mobs, you have done something wrong. You have made an error there. This is integral to Path of Exile 2's design. You are not designed to run past everything, get surrounded, and then survive unless you have a very strong character. Maybe if you do a great combo of abilities like I sometimes do with mine on the monk, and I can take down a huge group of enemies with good falling thunders, maybe you can get out of that. But if you are intentionally continuing getting surrounded by monster pack after monster pack, unless you're in that Act 2 almost end area, it is on you. Seriously. And then we have this cooked take right here. As someone who just ascended, I can't believe this. Sanctum feels worse than Labyrinth for Ascendancy. Doing Sanctum to get your Ascendancy feels awful because of how slow combat is. It takes up to 20 minutes to get to the boss. If you die to the boss, it still makes you redo the entire trial from the start. Don't die at the boss. Oh my goodness. I'm going to say it. I'm going to log off. Skill issue. Let's move on to my opinion. Yeah, now it's time for my opinion. I love Path of Exile 2. As someone who has now played for 14 hours, 14 minutes, and 6 seconds of this version, I can without a doubt say that I enjoy this game far more than Path of Exile 1. And it's because I'm treating it as a completely new experience. Every area is unique. All the monsters are rad. I just like killing buried monsters with my monk. I haven't really tried any other classes yet. Everyone chose for me to play a monk. I've been having a lovely time designing my own build right here. I'm an invoker. I'm not looking at any build guide. I didn't do any theory crafting. I'm just playing the game as grinding gear games intended it. I'm not using outside tools. I'm using everything that's inside the game itself. Sure, I have that background knowledge on all of my research on PoE2 and all that time playing Path of Exile 1, but I'm going in blind past Act 1. All these Act 2 bosses that I'm fighting, the experiences were exhilarating. I was shaking when I was fighting the Act 1 boss even. I mean, a lot of the Act 1 bosses, complete reskins, complete redesigns since the last time I fought them. They really upped the visual element in all these areas. The music is just chilling. The Act boss end fights, they are standouts when it comes to sound design. The music, especially in the Act 1 end boss fight, just, I want to fight it again. I hope that's the end fight music when you fight the boss in Endgame, because the crescendos of it, the vocals, I mean, it's an amazing fight. And I'm just now in Act 3. Okay? And that's something interesting I want to touch on as well. I'm in Act 3, 14 hours in. Veteran player. I paid technically you can pay $30 for this game. This game is more than worth it, even if you are only going to play, I think, through the campaign itself. The quality of the dialogue, the quality of the areas, the boss fights, the itemization, the skill design, and the skill tree, and everything. More than worth the $30 to play it. So if you were at all were on the fence and thinking, I'll wait till the full release of the game, maybe I'm just not going to get this game because there's not enough content, unless you are looking for a game that you will spend tens of thousands of hours on, thinking that it's not going to receive any changes, and it is going to, it's going to receive double the content in the next 6 to 12 months, then I would buy the game. Even if you just plan on playing it through it for the story, I would buy the game. It's great, especially as you treat it as the developers intended it. I am listening to the dialogue. I am reading all of the text on the map. If you haven't looked at the map, everyone, they put flavor text on the map and they're showing you where the bosses are and what the bosses give you. What I really care about, though, is the actual flavor text. It's so cool. The bloated miller, that gargantuan beast. Could that have been human once? At least the encampment is safe for now. And then if you didn't know, you can actually toggle above and below ground on the map too. So you can see the second level of the world. And you can find out what you've missed and what you haven't missed. Which, everyone, it's so cool. I mean, look at this. Look at all these areas. And the areas, the maps, I mean, the visual design on this game, I think the IGN review said that the visual design isn't anything special compared to Diablo 4. I'm just going to be in this area, which is the beginning of the jungle act of Path of Exile 2. Dare I say, this is already more varied than the jungle act of Diablo 4, which is crazy. And then I want to get into the story for a little bit too. Now I'm far more immersed. And spoiler, there are cinematics in Path of Exile 2. Mid-act cinematics that transfer you from one act to the next, and they are great. And the dialogue too, again, if you pay attention, if you listen to your character's dialogue, if you listen to the NPC dialogue, also brings you in, wraps you into the story, and there are plenty of callbacks to Path of Exile 1, which is great. Overall, everyone, my first impressions are shining. I pointed out a few critiques that I had earlier on in the video. I am using WASD. It feels great. It took me 25 minutes to get used to it. Now I'm loving it. I have a wide variety of skills that I'm using. I am a lightning monk. I went evoker. I'm probably going to take sunder thy enemies and then scatter them to the winds. Or maybe I'll go to unbound avatar. I don't know. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to play around with everything because that's what this game is allowing you to do. You can so freely swap around gems, try out all these different skills. It just feels limitless where I am right now. And you know what? You know why I probably still think that? Because I really have not been watching any other creators, any other videos. I'm hearing that there are lots of people that are already saying that this class doesn't work and this class doesn't do any damage and this isn't fun. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's true, or maybe these people just aren't already blasting the end game and that disappoints them. We'll find out. We'll find out soon what Grinding Gear Games intends. I hope they do not bend to the mob, though. If you haven't seen it already, I actually talked to Asmongold about Path of Exile 2 just before launch. The thoughts in this conversation far go past the launch of Path of Exile 2. So if you'd like some second monitor content, or if you just want to listen to the podcast, go ahead. Link will be in the description. On launch day, I also talked to Josh Strife-Hayes. Awesome conversation. Also going to be in the description. If you'd like to listen to it, go right ahead. I also did stream all of launch day, and the support was shocking, as you can probably see in this video. We received over 3,000 subs on Twitch, hundreds more on YouTube. The support was, I never would have predicted it would happen. So if you'd like to catch me on Twitch or on YouTube Live, more than welcome. I will be streaming the next few days, my full experiences with Path of Exile 2 as I go to Act 3 and beyond. I'll catch you there. As I said at the top of the video, if you like the video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe to the channel, completely free and the best way to support me. I will see you in the next one, my fellow exiles. Stay sane and have fun in Path of Exile 2.